Dear students, hello and welcome. Today our topic for discussion is views of Buddhist philosophy on self and identity. The main objectives of this lecture include to know about the concept of Buddhist philosophy, to understand the main sources of Buddhist literature, to understand about the religious schools of Buddhism, to know about the 6 Buddhist councils, and finally to know about the main features of Buddhist philosophy. Students, let's first talk about the concept of Buddhist philosophy. Lord Buddha was the founder of Buddhist philosophy. He got birth in 563 BC in a noble family in Lumbini, which is situated near the Indo-Nepal border. Shadhudan, the king of the Shakya family in the south of Nepal, was his father and Maya Devi was his mother. At the time of birth, Lord Buddha's name was Siddhartha. A week after his birth, his mother Maya Devi passed away and his stepmother Mahaprajapati took him up. For a long time, Buddha went around India and Nepal, teaching his philosophy of freedom. His teachings were passed on verbally and not written down until many years after his death. He passed away after many years of teaching and traveling throughout India. As per content, the nirvana or death of Lord Buddha took place in 544 BC. He got passed away at the age of 80 years in UP. Then the death of his birth must have been 624 BC. One day, Siddhartha set out to sit under a Bodhi tree until he achieved enlightenment. Then he entered into the awareness of nirvana for a few days. On getting back to normal awareness, Siddhartha, the Buddha, made the decision to spend the rest of his life teaching others how to escape the innate suffering of life. He was aware to consciousness of human suffering by the sight of disease, old age, death, and other miseries to which man is subject. He spent years on reading, penance, and meditation to discover the origin of human suffering and means to overcome them. With the rise of Buddhism in India, there arose many centers of learning which did not exist before. Buddhist monks could opt for a life of meditation in the forests or a life of teaching, preaching, and circulating the Dharma. As a result of the activities of the teaching of monks, seats of learning arose. These seats of monastic learning gradually developed and some of them became full-fledged universities. As a result, India came to have 5 major universities which achieved wide fame. Some of them are Nalanda, Vikramshalla, Jagadala, and Somapur. Now students, source of Buddhist literature. First one is Tripitaka, that is 3 baskets of wisdom. The main source of Buddhism is Tripitaka and also called the Pali Canon, after the language in which it was first written. The Pali language of ancient India is very like the one that the Buddha himself taught. Dear students, the Tripitaka are divided into 3 sections. Number 1 is Vinaya Pitaka, a rule book for priests and nuns. There are 227 principles for priests and something else for nuns. Second one is Sutta Pitaka, the real experience of Buddha. And last one is Abhidhamma Pitaka, an interpretation of the teaching of Buddha. A large portion of these are called sutras. Second one is the Milinda Panha. It is a dialogue between the Buddhist scholar and teacher Nagasena and the famous king Medar, who ruled in various parts of India. Third one is Jataka. It is a collection of stories and legends about the life of Buddha. In each story, Buddha appears in one of his previous incarnations, various births in various forms, priests, princes, slaves, women, etc. Now, religious schools of Buddhism. The terms Mahayana and Hinayana, which developed in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, led to the division of Buddhism into two sections after death of the Lord Buddha. These are differences between these two Buddhist sects in terms of their conceptions of religion. Now, Mahayana. The Mahayana is the oldest branch of Buddhism, having been founded in India during the Second Buddhist Council in 383 BCE. It is one of the two main schools of Buddhism whose philosophies are based on the teaching of Siddhartha Gautama, similar to Theravada Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism is a philosophy that also aims to achieve nirvana. Nirvana is a state of enlightenment that comes with the recognition that the ego or the thing we think of as ourself is an illusion that causes us pain and suffering. The school of thought let out the concept of God in their religion, as they consider Lord Buddha as a god and they worship him as a god. According to Mahayana, there are 1,000 Buddhas who will begin universal religions. They say there were many more before them and there will be many more after them too. Mahayana is strongly committed to the soul of the Buddha's teaching. Sanskrit sutras are used to write the Mahayana texts. Its scriptures are written in the form of sutras in Sanskrit. This branch of philosophy attained recognition at the time of Kanishka. According to this Buddhist group, everyone became a Buddha. This is due to the reality that everyone is endowed with the Buddha nature element, which can drive one to the rank of Buddha. India, China, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, Nepal, Bhutan, and Mongolia are just a few of the countries that practice Mahayana Buddhism. It is true, these two schools of Buddhism were accepted by the Third Buddhist Council. The pattern of Buddha's life and the persona is the basis of Mahayana thought. The Mahayana in real is salvation to all, which is why it is known as a bigger vehicle. This group supports the thought of Bodhisattva, who is concerned about the salvation of others. This school of thought believes in the divine qualities of Buddha and thus believes in idol worship, additionally called the Bodhisattva vehicle. The central principles of this sect are based on the possibility of worldwide freedom from suffering for all beings. As a result, this is referred to as the Great Vehicle. The most outstanding exponent of Mahayana Buddhism was Nagarjuna. Now, Hinayana school of thought. It is true that Mahayana Buddhism came up early. Hinayana Buddhism is seen to be more traditional and conservative. The Hinayana, which means small vehicle in Sanskrit, did not really accept the Buddha's divinity and promoted personal salvation via self-discipline and meditation. This group has followers in Myanmar, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. These people follow the Hinayana sutras that were written in Pali language. The sutras that Buddha taught that encourage practitioners to achieve Sarvaka Buddhahood or Pratyeka Buddhahood would be considered a part of Hinayana as a school of thought. According to Hinayana Buddhism, Lord Buddha was a normal person like everyone else because he had many human characteristics such as living like a person. Besides, if he was a god, he would have already known about old-aged people, diseased people, and dead people. So, Siddhartha Gautama is a normal person who devoted most of his life to finding the truth of life, to reach enlightenment. Hinayana school follows the fundamental principles of the Pali Canon. In Hinayana Buddhism, importance is given to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. They are regarded as the sect that is most closely associated with the Buddha's teachings for his reason. According to Hinayana Buddhism, one must first travel the path of Bodhisattva before becoming a Buddha. In Sanskrit, Bodhisattva means a person who intends to become a Buddha. It means the individuals who are on the path to becoming Buddha or attaining salvation are known as Bodhisattvas. They deny the notion that Buddha is a divine being. Rather, they think that Buddha was just a normal person who gained nirvana and was kind enough to share his knowledge. Hinayana Buddhism has been modified over time by various persons in various locations. However, the core and aim of the philosophy have not been changed. Now, Buddhist councils. A sequence of notable Buddhist monks and scholars meetings in ancient India is referred to as the Buddhist councils. The purpose of these councils was to discuss and solve conflicts over how to interpret and apply Buddhist teachings as well as how to preserve and disseminate Buddhist texts. The establishment of the two oldest Buddhist traditions, the Mahayana and Theravada Buddhist schools, was one of the significant developments that occurred at the first Buddhist council. The history of the early Buddha schools has undergone various modifications, including the translation of many ancient Buddha sutras and teachings. There are 6 councils of Buddhism. Now, first Buddhist council. The preacher Mahakassapa presided over this council, which took place at Rajgir shortly after Buddha's passing. This council was held in 483 BC. This council's main objective was to correctly preserve and convey the teachings of Buddha and the monastic discipline by reciting and compiling them. The first Buddhist council was held shortly after Lord Buddha's passing at Kushinagar. Following the Buddha's parinirvana, a number of renowned preachers convened to discuss the best ways to impart and oversee the teachings of Gautama Buddha. Now, second Buddhist council. This council, which came up to find out the solution of the conflicts within the Sangha, was held in the ancient Indian city of Vaishali in 386 CE. Buddhist practices and conventions were the principal themes of discussion during the second Buddhist council. Buddhist history states that the Buddhist council was gathered by a well-known preacher by the name of Yasa, who saw several preachers behaving badly. The question of whether monks should manage funds for the benefits of all monks and the Sangha order was also considered. This viewpoint was rejected by the Yasa-led council, but disagreements over this matter caused the first split within the Buddhist order. The second Buddhist council took place in the 3rd century under Pataliputra. This Buddhist council's main goal was to discuss the Great Sikhism issue. This Great Sikhism was between early Theravada Buddhism, early Mahayana Buddhism, and the early Buddhist schools. Third Buddhist council. During Ashoka's rule, the third Buddhist council took place in Pataliputra almost a century after the second council. According to Theravada Buddhism, King Ashoka presided over the Buddhist council, which discussed whether or not Buddhism should extend it outside of the Southeast Asia. As a result of this Buddhist council, Ashoka set Buddhist missionaries to teach the concepts and teachings of the Buddha in several regions, including Gandhara, Kashmir, Sri Lanka, and many more. However, only this mission had been successful for Gandhara, Kashmir, and Sri Lanka. During this meeting, the Abhidharma works, remarks, and writings were collected and integrated into one of the 3 divisions of the Buddhist canon. Now, Fourth Buddhist Council. Around the 1st century, the Fourth Council of Buddhism met at Tambapani, Sri Lanka, and adopted the Theravada school of thought. Furthermore, the Fourth Buddhist Council is believed to have included just a small number of Sarvastivada Buddhists. 2 centuries after the Third Buddhist Council in Kashmir, King Kanishka sponsored the Fourth Buddhist Council. 500 preachers under the direction of Vasumitra revised the canon and produced a final edition. The Fourth Buddhist Council is thought to have been arranged by King Kanishka. The Fourth Buddhist Council taught Buddhism in a variety of forms, including Theravada, Mahayana, and many more traditions. Now, Fifth Buddhist Council. Burma hosted the Fifth Buddhist Council in 1871 CE under the King Mindon. The basic objectives of this assembly was to repeat all the teachings of Gautama Buddha as found in the Pali Canon of Theravada Buddhism, and to examine each instruction to see whether any had been altered, misunderstood, or left out. The Tripitaka was also approved by this council. It was written in Burmese script on 719 marble slabs for future generations before it was spoken. This council has little recognition outside of the Burma. The Fifth Buddhist Council gathered in Burma was not attended by representatives of the majority of Buddhist countries. Now, Last Buddhist Council. The purpose of calling the Sixth Council of Buddhism was to compile the teachings of Buddha. The assembly members had to jointly approve the words before they could be combined. A collection of the teachings of the Buddha is called Tripitaka. The conceptual component of the Dharma is essential, just like the practical and applied side. With the support and participation of learned preachers all around the globe, Prime Minister of Burma welcomed the Sixth Council in May 1954. Over 2,500 learned preachers from Burma, Sri Lanka, Thailand, India, and other countries re-examined the Tripitaka text under the direction of Venerable Guru Bhadanta Rivata. The council completed its work on the full moon day of Vesic in the year 1956. Let us discuss some of the main features of Buddhist philosophy. First one is concept of karma. In Buddhism, the notion of karma is essential. It has something to do with the rule of cause and effect. According to this concept, the thought of karma states that our current activities have outcomes. The outcomes may be immediate, occur years later, or even appear as another form of life. Karma is considered as a result rather than a cause, and karma is often kept in a being's awareness. Now, the Four Noble Truths. The great Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. A believer can better understand the actual meaning of life by knowing and comprehending these Four Noble Truths. Number one is the truth of suffering, that is dukkha. The Buddha realized that this world is full of suffering. All existence, including birth, old age, sickness, and death, is suffering, and sorrow is dukkha. This is called the truth of suffering. Now, the second, the truth of cause of suffering. The cause of human suffering lies in ignorance. Ignorance and its resulting karma have often been referred to in Buddhism as desire or craving. Buddha says that the root of the cause of suffering is found in the mind itself. For example, we suffer when we lose something because our mind formed an attachment to it. The truth of the end of suffering. The end of all human ignorance results in a state also known as nirvana. This is the truth of the end of suffering. Reaching nirvana is not a place of thing, but more like a state of peacefulness. Imagine there is a flame representing the ignorance of the world. The end of that flame is nirvana. Now, the truth of the path to end of suffering. The final and last noble truth is the Buddha's path to the end of suffering. This is a set of rules called the Eightfold Path. According to Buddhism, sufferings can be removed by eightfold paths. Number 1 is having the right view and understanding. Since everything changes, you must comprehend things as they truly are without misconceptions. Therefore, it is important to get knowledge about how things operate. Respect others and yourself at the same time. Next one is have the right thinking. Right intention, avoiding thoughts of belonging and harmful intent. Next one is right speech. Stop from telling untruths, being idle and using rough language. Instead, practice being truthful and honest. Additionally, work on the being polite and helpful in your words. Next one is right conduct. Adopt a selfless attitude that incarnates the ideal way to live the life you desire. In other words, convey in a way that is kind, sincere, and simple, while demonstrating compassion for all beings. Next one is right livelihood. Make a life without risking other beings. Therefore, stay away from jobs that make others suffer, or it makes leading a decent moral life difficult. Therefore, stop from charming in any work that is in opposition to our detractors from the path of love. Most importantly, use your job to better the world. Now, right effort. Buddha recommended that his students make the right effort to rid oneself of unhealthy thoughts, words, and actions, and to perfect wholesome state of being. Strive to maintain balance while they walk the spiritual path. Therefore, live in a moderate life. Next one is right mindfulness. Become sharply aware of every bodily, emotional, and mental conditions. Always judge your ideas, speech, and actions via meditation. Additionally, avoid focusing on selfish thoughts. Be mindful of your thoughts, feelings, body, and the surroundings as they are right now. Remember that your thoughts shape your reality as well. And last one is right concentration. A higher state of awareness is attained by extended meditation. Therefore, always strive to put out the last flame of consciousness through the use of meditation and mental discipline. Create a condition within that allows you to welcome and love everything. Meditation. It is the fundamental practice of Buddhist philosophy. It denotes mental concentration of reaching inner quiet which leads to the enlightenment. It's also a devotional exercise. It is just the teaching of focusing your attention on a certain object. It's also a fundamental Buddhist belief. That is, meditation practice helps you attain a heightened level of consciousness and focused attention. It also aids in the removal of unneeded tensions from your thoughts. The 5 principles. For a lay Buddhist, the 5 precepts or 5 principles of training represent the most important moral code. They are the core moral principles upheld by laity Buddhists. In the beginning, the Buddha did not create any guidelines for the Sangha. Only after something went wrong, a rule developed. The 5 precepts are the 5 important rules and guidelines, and they are as follows. No killing, that is respect for life. Next one is no stealing, that is respect for others' holdings. Another is no sexual misconduct, means respect for your own real nature. Never lie, that is respect the truth. And 5th one is avoiding mind-affecting substances like drugs. Next one is Pabaja ceremony. Pabaja was an obtained ceremony of the Buddhist monasteries, which means going out. According to this ceremony, the student, after being admitted to a monastery, had to reject all his globally, and family relationships. Admission to a monastery was open to anybody from any caste in the society, and once accepted, they were no longer considered members of that caste. The student had to take an oath. For example, it is, I take refuge with the Buddha, I take refuge with the religion, and I take refuge with the order. After admission, he had to change all his old clothes and all his old ways and manners of living. A minimum of 8 years old was needed to participate in the Pabaja ceremony. Education lasted for 12 years following the Pabaja ceremony. After completing 12 years of study, or when the student turned 20, he was required to participate in the Upasampada ceremony. Now, Upasampada ceremony. Following Pabaja, the Buddhist monk was required to participate in the Upasampada ceremony, which was different from the Pabaja. The Upasampada ceremony was carried out when the individual had completed 12 years of schooling or 20 years of age. The event was democratic in nature. The Shraman was required to appear before the other monks. Only after the decision was approved by the majority of monks could someone be accepted for the Upasampada ceremony. The Shraman was considered a fully matured member of the monastery after the Upasampada ceremony. All of his family and globally relationships ended throughout this process. Now, concept of self in Buddhism. Buddhism holds that our beliefs of self or soul are only mental constructs that cannot be discovered in any meaningful way. As a result, various people have varied conceptions of what the real self could be. Buddhism views the concept of an individual self as a delusion. Self cannot exist apart from its nature. Buddhists hold the view that neither the ego nor the soul are eternal, since there is no constant eternal essence or soul. Buddhist sometimes talks about energy being rebirth rather than souls. The Pali or basic translation of the Sanskrit term anatma, which means not self, is anatta. The non-self or no self or other names for it. Anatta is the absence of the self. Anatta can also refer to the objective reality, what is not the self or what is something else altogether. Anatta stands for all that is different from or outside of the self. Anatta is a thought that there is no soul or self in mankind. Buddha believed that since nothing is eternal and everything changes, people have no soul. The traditions of Hinduism and Jainism in ancient India are where anatta or anatma has its roots, not Buddhism or Buddhist teachings. It is also not specific to Buddhism only. Buddha made it the center of his teachings, so it became well known. The Buddha taught that beings do not have eternal souls. He believed that the eternal self was a fabrication thought or mental construction. It had no basis in reality. He believed that the universe lacked a soul, given that all beings are subject to change, aging, decay, and death. It was neither conceivable nor credible that an everlasting and stable soul could exist anywhere or in any being. For him, the only self that made sense was the objective self, which was made up of the body and the mind, could be identified by a name and a shape, and had a physical self. Students, to conclude, we may say that the philosophy of Buddhism is as old as time itself. It has gone a long way due to Buddha's uniqueness and awareness of his own existence. It focuses more on the desirable characteristics and living to achieve enlightenment. Everyone, layman or priest, can achieve the greatest objective in Buddhism. All we have to do is to make a sincere attempt to walk the noble eightfold path. It is stated that people who have realized the truth, such as Buddha and his notable followers, did not do so by chance. They did not fall from the sky like a rain from the ground like grain. Once upon a time, the Buddha and his followers were normal living beings like you and me. They were formerly troubled by the mental purity, emotion, spite, and ignorance. They became free, lofty beings able to teach and assist others understand the truth via engagement with the Dharma, developing their minds and acquiring enlightenment. There is no question then that if we dedicate ourselves to the Buddha's teachings, we too may accomplish the ultimate aim of Buddhism. We can imitate the Buddha or his excellent followers. Dear students, it was all for the today. I hope that you might have enjoyed this very session. Thank you.